Ho ho ho! Hi guys! I decided to make one last video for this year and this decade for a digital audio player that I consider to be quite special and different. So this is my in-depth review for the FiiO M11 Pro. And it's finally here! Yay! I waited for this one for a very long time and my final review will be ready in about 2 weeks, I think. Until that happens, let's unbox it first and see what's inside the package. Okay, pretty thick packaging. Ta-da! The same basically packaging as FiiO M11. And here is the device itself. It looks basically like M11. It is thicker by 1 millimeter. That is the only difference, and obviously one single card slot, not two of them, because as I understand this SoC system on chip and this CPU works better with just one card slot. What else we can find inside? A lot of paperwork, so a quick start guide, open source licenses, okay, and the notes on how to use Bluetooth enabled devices. And right here a coaxial cable, so a 3.5mm to coaxial adapter. In case you want to use it as a transport, and an USB Type-C cable, and that is basically it. What I see, what is missing from the box is the protective case, clear case. I believe that FiiO stated that that one doesn't fit M11 Pro and its quality control is not so good. So FiiO decided just to abandon it. This is basically everything you can find in the package, and I'm very curious if the case from DAC Hi-Fi for M11 will fit the M11 Pro. And let's check that out together. M11 Pro is a little bit thicker compared to M11, so maybe the case will have a very snug fit. Okay, it fits, but it is very tight, a very tight fit, and sadly it is not closing. It is closing, but a very snug fit. So as you can see, it fits pretty nicely. That's nice. So basically the M11 case will fit the M11 Pro. But obviously, if you can, you should order the M11 Pro case, not this one. In terms of build quality, I was already impressed by M11, so I'm having the same feelings about the M11 Pro. It is a beautiful machined aluminum device, it looks impressive and has that high-end feel to it. It has a huge glass sheet on the front and on the back, and very much in line with the newest smartphone trends. M11 Pro has again that fiberglass look on the back, and those small things like high-resolution audio and high-resolution wireless, THX laser engraved logos underneath the glass are adding a touch of proudness. It's a unique DAP in every single way. It feels great in the hand, it is quite balanced too. Compared to M11, it is just by 1mm thicker to accommodate a bigger battery inside. It has a Golden Pro logo on its left side, and it has just a single microSD card slot instead of 2 slots on M11, but more about that in a minute. I'm glad that FiiO didn't put buttons on every side, and you will find most of them on its left side. So there is a play, pause, a previous and next track buttons, and a volume wheel. On top is your standby on-off button, and on the bottom you will find a trio of headphone outputs, so you have a normal 3.5mm single-ended output, and two balanced outputs coming in 2.5 and 4.4mm flavors. The USB Type-C works for data transfer, for charging, or for using it as an external DAC for your PC, Mac, or even for your OTG-enabled smartphone. The biggest drawback of M11 Pro compared to M11 was the decision to drop the second microSD card slot, but FiiO clearly stated that this system on chip is not working perfectly with two microSD cards and decided to drop one of them. On the plus side, M11 Pro supports the biggest capacity microSD cards, and in time it will support even newer generation of cards up to 2 TB in size. FiiO used the same and big 5.15 inches IPS multi-touch display that is almost bezel-less and very pretty to look at. Gone are those ugly chins and all that is left is a colorful and high quality display. Contrast is quite good, black levels are quite nice, so are those viewing angles. Image quality is nice thanks to that high pixel count and resolution, and it is basically the same screen with the same 18:9 aspect ratio that M11 DAP has. Due to a high PPI, the final image is quite crisp and my cover albums are looking vivid and crystal clear. FiiO went with a bigger battery on this one, so this is the sole reason. It is thicker by about 1 mm compared to the regular M11. Battery capacity increased from 3800 mAh to 4370 mAh, but the actual battery level dropped to 9.5 hours on the normal headphone jack, and that is because higher performance DAC chips and those THX amp modules are using much more battery power compared to the ones inside the regular M11. With M11 Pro you are basically sacrificing a bit of battery life in exchange for higher quality sonics. In terms of tech specs, it rocks the same and fast and reliable 6-core Exynos CPU that currently is the fastest one in any DAP at any price. RAM memory remained at 3 GB and the built-in ROM memory increased from 32 to 64 GB. So even without a microSD card you can store a decent amount of music. FiiO went with a lightweight and custom Android OS based on version 7.0. Sadly, M11 Pro doesn't have a Google Play Store, but instead has an application bubble from which you can download all your music streaming apps and other things like Bandcamp or SoundCloud or others. FiiO also offers a possibility to install any other third-party apps market like APK Pure or Cool APK, from where you can install any other third-party apps like YouTube, games and so on. From dual AK4493 DAC chips on M11, FiiO went straight to the top by choosing a dual AK4497 setup that on paper will offer a much better signal-to-noise ratio, a better dynamic range and a lower total harmonic distortion. To properly implement those two, some changes needed to be made, so FiiO used an independent volume control chip and dual crystal clocks to squeeze the best out of those. M11 by comparison doesn't have those, and when critically analyzing both, the difference becomes very clear. Going forward to the analog stage, FiiO went again with a top-of-the-line solution that will not bottleneck its DAC performance, so the THX AAA78 modules inside have absolutely impressive specs and leaving the DAC doing its job without altering that analog signal. Power-wise, M11 Pro is slightly more powerful on the single-ended output, so it offers 200 mW of power into 32 ohms and 550 mW of power in the same load on the both balanced outputs. Adding all those improvements on the digital and analog side resulted in a much lower total harmonic distortion, so M11 Pro has it by 3.5 times lower on the 3.5 jack and 2 times lower on the balanced jacks compared to M11. As a result, noise floor almost halved compared to M11 for an absolutely pitch black background. FiiO also incorporated a full Mqa decoder, but you should know that Mqa files as of right now are supported only in the FiiO Music app, meaning that you will need to store all those Mqa files on your card or on the internal memory, but FiiO stated that future firmware updates will be released to support full Mqa decoding by other third-party apps as Tidal for example. Okay guys, so let's move to the most important part, sound quality. Okay guys, so I first listened to some low impedance and very sensitive IEMs, and I believe that that super low total harmonic distortion, that super low noise floor made a huge difference on M11 Pro. Every IEM that I tested it with, as SIMGOT EN700 Pro, FiiO FH7, FA7 and many other lower tiered ones, sounded just ultra crisp and really grain free. So I believe that background noise was nowhere to be spotted, just a pitch black background, even on the maxed out volume, on the high gain, on the single-ended, on the both balanced outputs. So I believe that in this regard the older M11 Pro sounded also silent, but not really dead silent as this one is sounding. In terms of volume, I never passed the 80 volume position out of 120, even on the 3.5 jack on the low gain. If I go balanced on the both headphone jacks, I could go up to 65, again on the low gain. So I believe that the headroom was just huge, really big, and M11 Pro offered me an incredible driver control. So on some particular music with the former M11, it couldn't offer me a faster pace, an extended treble area, or that ultimate driver control. So M11 Pro by comparison sounded like a really grown up, a very serious product. Music was not just very detailed, very crisp and precise, but also musical and quite engaging. So since all those IEMs don't need a lot of power to be driven, just that ultimate driver control to show away that muddiness, I believe that M11 Pro sounded a lot like a desktop stack, say of topping D70 or A1 S6 Pro, followed by a SMSL SP200 desktop headphone amp. So I'm very serious about this. M11 Pro sounds almost undistinguishable from a hi-fi desktop setup. Moving on to portable over-ear and on-ear headphones, you probably don't use those anymore, but I still love mine and I still use wired portable headphones quite a lot. Especially the Momentum range by Sennheiser, like Momentum 2 and Momentum 3 are quite great sounding. So some of you probably heard the Momentum range by now, and you probably know that they have not quite my tempo type of sound, so that is a little bit leaner, slower, or maybe boring sounding for lower power devices. And M11 sounded quite fine with them and didn't really change them into something else. But on M11 Pro, on the other hand, I don't really know what is to blame. Maybe that dual AK4497 setup, maybe those dual crystal clocks, or that sexy THX modules. But Momentum's really opened it up and awoken from their deep sleep. They started sounding jumpy on me, so much faster somehow, articulated. They sound like that mostly on desktop powered setups, and here I am looking at M11 Pro, quite surprised by how different it sounds compared to M11. Maybe everything as a whole made a much bigger difference than all those things separately. So driver control was definitely better and probably among the best in portable devices that I tried until now. Dynamics kicked in full force, and listening to some faster paced music thought never left my mind. This sounds not rushed nor dragged, just right my tempo. So volume wise I never passed 105 volume position, even on the 3.5 headphone jack on the single-ended out. Even with the harder to drive RZ Italia, again I think that headroom was just plenty enough. So portable headphones, over-ears or on-ears or multi-drivers IEMs, everything in between basically sounded as connected to a big badass desktop setup. So again, in my opinion, M11 Pro sounded outstanding and above the rest compared to other portable devices. For fun, I then decided connected it to some desktop headphones, but first of all you should know that M11 Pro wasn't really made for desktop headphones, but that doesn't really mean that I can't connect and test few of them, and I'm pretty sure this will be the funniest part of this review. So instead of going for the simplest dynamic headphones like Sennheiser HD660, I thought, hey, I should probably test some of the biggest headphones that I know with the biggest ear cups and driver assembly. So I connected the RZH Phobos on the 3.5 single-ended jack. That one is a planar magnetic headphone that eats current for breakfast. At only 45 ohms and having a 106mm driver assembly, it needs some serious amperage to be driven even for some normal listening levels. Still, at 110 volume level, I'm smiling and I'm nodding my head, even on the 3.5 jack. And M11 Pro was more than capable of driving them almost to their fullest. I said almost because it had almost everything from my home desktop setup, except for that lightning fast transient response, that control and that only a wall-powered desktop headphone amplifier can provide. But anything else like details like transparency, dynamics were pretty much there. Even the frequency extremes like the sub bass and the treble area were very present, very clean without a hint of dryness or brightness. So moving on to other planar magnetic headphones like the Quad Era 1, those worked even better with this one. So at 105 volume they sounded much closer to my desktop setup and everything just clicked into place. So dynamics were definitely better, I think, this time around, and transit response was much better as well. In terms of soundstaging depth, I will tell you from the start that M11 Pro for me presented the widest soundstage that I've heard in a digital audio player. So M11 from FiiO and X7 Mark II sounded quite open and wide, but not on the same level with M11 Pro. So this big change was felt mostly with high quality IEMs and with desktop headphones. And in this regard, the M11 Pro reminds me a lot like a desktop DAC attached to a THX amp. So it sounds quite open, quite wide, and very much so that some might find this a little bit distracting at times. So it grabs my attention quite often and quite a lot while listening to M11 Pro. And I really can't multitask while listening to it in front of a PC, because it just grabs my attention. So that air flying around is so easily spotted. All those musical notes wrapped in a bigger air bubble somehow. And I feel like wandering between all those musical notes very easily. M11 Pro is just against forwardness, muddiness and upfront presentations, and chooses to unfold everything for the listener. So I personally like this effect quite a lot, but I know a few people that don't. So it really depends on the listener. I don't want to sound overly positive about this one, but if you ever heard a desktop THX headphone amplifier, you probably know that those are all about speed, impact and fast transients. And M11 Pro is really not that different from those. So the second biggest change to the regular M11 is actually the speed, impact and transients, as I call them. So M11 Pro is all about acceleration, about speed. It wants to slam your eardrums like drumsticks into your brain. So if M11 can be a little bit lean, boring, smooth and relaxed, M11 Pro is all about nerve. It can even be aggressive on some tracks if the tracks are asking for it. So it opted for a faster decay in a detriment of a slower one. In terms of detail retrieval, this is where I felt another improvement compared to the regular M11. So I spotted an additional layer of micro details, not only on the top quality recordings, but even on the older rock tunes, I can spot an additional layer of information. So there is just a little bit more to hear and more to feel. So I can just walk easier between all those notes with M11 Pro. And I feel that with M11 there is more bumps down the road. So M11 Pro is quite transparent sounding and offers an impressive level of detail retrieval. And if I am omitting the power limitations of M11 Pro, it reminds me a lot about a desktop setup, so it sounds like a grown-up and quite serious DAC. In terms of frequency response, I think that FiiO achieved a very good tonal balance on this one by marrying a musical digital to analog converter with a super precise and revealing headphone amplifier. And by doing that, they actually solved the limited frequency range of the regular M11. And as a result, the biggest improvements on M11 Pro are actually the sub-bass and the upper treble region, where everything is just tighter sounding and better defined. So I believe that M11 Pro has a really good sub-bass area and it can reveal information down to 20 Hz. So it goes low, it has a very good sustain, it slams quite well for such a small and portable device like this one. So it is never overdone, it never steals the show, so it's still not bass head material. Treble was improved probably the most compared to the regular M11, as I just hear and I just feel a better outline of those hi-hats or a much clearer drum pedal. So when M11, on the regular M11, those sounded softer and had a shorter somehow decay. And on M11 Pro you can feel their start, you can feel their end, and I can just easier analyze my music on M11 Pro, and I can be confident that I am losing close to nothing in terms of frequency range. So it has just a better control and of every note and a wider frequency response as a whole. Okay guys, so my whole review feels like a big comparison between M11 and M11 Pro, and since I don't want to make this video super long or boring, I really recommend checking out my written review below for my in-depth comparison between both devices. Going on into the conclusion, M11 Pro looks, performs and sounds like a high-end DAP to me, It has the fastest CPU of the moment, it has a beautiful machined aluminum body, and some impressive specs that only FiiO implemented so far. So I'm glad that FiiO had the guts and courage to try new things, as implemented those THX modules, and I hope that the extra work will be rewarded and repaid back. I know that FiiO is super proud about this one, as they just decided to make a limited run of M11 Pro stainless steel version of just 1500 units worldwide, so act fast if you want to reserve one for yourself. Oh guys, and one more thing, DAP days are not over yet. Not yet. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. My full in-depth review is waiting on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and thank you for doing that. And as usual, listen to more music, be positive, and I'll see you soon. Cheers guys, bye bye.